All right, for more on the U.S. economy, I want to bring in Jameel Ahmad, Chief Analyst at GTC Group, an online brokerage company. Jameel, welcome to the program. So let me begin, if I may, with that court ruling on President Trump's tariffs. If that ruling is upheld, Jameel, how might that shake up global trade dynamics, if at all? And will it weaken, you think, President Trump's leverage in future trade negotiations?
Well, I would say that this is the latest twist in that thriller, what's turned into a TV series, really, on trade and so forth under the returning President Trump presidency. If you look at the way that things seem to be developing, you look at the initial market reaction and the strength in the greenback that we saw in the early hours after the decision suggests that investors are starting to position themselves that maybe this does weaken the leverage. Because one of the, I would say, the changes of the tune from an investor standpoint is that the threat on the U.S. economy is that the U.S. economy will suffer the most from this trade uncertainty. However, as trade has progressed on Thursday, we actually have seen the dollar start to weaken once again. So perhaps this changes things a little bit, but once this ruling gets potentially appealed, or the president and the unconventional way of how they handle policies find a different way to maybe weaponize trade or different aspects of the market environment, then maybe it doesn't change the trade dynamics, at least when it comes to uncertainty. And again, this is the key thing here. It's uncertainty. We've seen with this tariff drama that's played out over the past couple of months that initially the administration going very hard with a certain percentage point, but then they roll back on that percentage point and take a softer approach. So the real trade dynamics, I wouldn't say change that much, but maybe some of the power play that's at play.
Yeah, so Jameel, I feel like I would know the answer to my next question for you, but maybe you can expand on it a little bit more because markets, of course, initially did cheer the ruling, but the Trump administration has already pledged to appeal. Does this court ruling bring any real clarity for you, or are businesses, you think, still left guessing quite a lot when it comes to U.S. trade policy?
We are guessing as much as we were guessing 1 week ago and 3 months ago. Nothing's changing when it comes to the guessing. But what I would say that we need to watch out for here is that what we have seen, a little bit of a new twist, is that President Trump did start to, I would say, in terms of the tariffs, attack companies. For example, you saw that threat on Apple at the end of last week. That's the first time that you've actually seen the US president, in terms of tariffs, attack the business strategy of a particular organization. So that might actually weaken business confidence because then businesses say that it's not just about tariffs on economies, you might actually start tariffing businesses. So I would say that's what we have to watch out for as maybe something that can change this field of play. But apart from that, we are guessing and we're none the wiser than what we were before the court ruling or even 1 month ago.
Okay, Jameel, let me shift gears and talk about the broader U.S. economy because the latest Fed minutes signal rising internal concern about stagflation risk, so perhaps higher inflation, slower growth. How could this, you think, shape the Fed's reaction function going forward, especially if we see trade policy continuing to be this wild card?
It's going to remain a wild card no matter what, but I do think that the outlook is that the Federal Reserve, the U.S. Central Bank, will look to cut interest rates over the second half of 2025, and it's not something that we are talking about enough. Because if you look at the economic data in the United States, whether it's the soft data or the hard data, for example, this GDP revision that's come out, then we are starting to see more signs of slower U.S. economic momentum. It's not fallen off a cliff. I would not say that we're in a recession territory or a risk of one yet by any stretch, but that Fed policy is likely to be more inspired for lower interest rates over the remainder of 2025. And in fact, even with the tariff wildcard, again, if we go back to the first answer, it seems to be the administration going very hard with the headline. But then as negotiations take place, we're starting to soften our stance. The risk of the stagflation in terms of higher inflation is not so high. So I would say that the Federal Reserve are probably more motivated and encouraged to lower interest rates now than what they were some time ago.
Right, so then despite this darker staff forecast from the Fed, there was little pushback against holding rates steady. So with the markets pricing in cuts later this year, like you mentioned, is the Fed, you think, potentially might be just behind the curve, or is caution still the most credible path in this uncertain environment?
Caution is still the most credible path. We could also argue that for somebody to say the Fed's behind the curve. If they would have moved the needle, whether it was high interest rates or lower interest rates than the earlier, that might have presented a different shock to the global economic environment, financial markets. It might have suggested that the Fed, the US central bank, is either being pressured by the political agenda of the United States in terms of where the president has openly called for lower interest rates, or is concerned that these tariffs are going to cause such an inflation shock that they need to raise interest rates, which might have presented more panic in the market environment. We should not forget that we are coming back off a very unforeseen period of spectacular volatility across different asset classes. The Feds, like businesses, like other central banks, like institutions like me and you, we never know where this series is going to twist next. So in terms of what the Fed might do, until they know where things might be heading, they're going to still be cautious.
Okay, Jameel, we are going to leave it there. Many thanks for your thoughts on all of that. Jameel Ahmad, Chief Analyst at GTC Group. Thank you. And up next here on Global Business.